Awesome. All right. Well, Scott Michael Wagstaff, welcome to the show, episode 3 of the show. So I think it's a legit thing now. Um,
Right.
I don't have any kind of crazy intro prep because I know you too well, so I'm not sure how much justice I would do if that's even enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to you and let you kind of give the backstory to Scott Michael Wagstaff a little bit and the origin of the superhero that is.
Wow. Wow, that's no pressure whatsoever. And also, yeah, it's a bit dangerous. You know me all too well, isn't it, really?
Only for you.
Yeah, exactly. um, Origin story. Can't remember the last time I had a pan that one out, but here we go, I guess. So I'm from a place called Wolverhampton in the Midlands, West Midlands, England. And there's a show called Peaky Blinders where you'll know what the accent is supposed to sound like. So thankfully, you can probably everyone can understand me much better talking this way. And I guess so I had my whole childhood back there, and I moved I moved home pretty quickly. For the age of 16, I went on to Performing Arts College in Leeds.
Woo!
SLP College it was called, where I used to have some hair and used to like style it into a mohawk thing and like wear these chains like dancers did. Yes, I was a dancer and a singer and actor at that time, training in musical theatre.
Were you trying to get into the Black Eyed Peas with that look or something?
You know, it was at that time at the age of 16, I was getting influenced by anybody who was to me like, to be this thing, you have to be like succeeding in this thing, you have to look this way and be this cool. So I was like, cool, I'm gonna get like one of those keyring chains on my jeans and like spray the tips of my mohawk green. I actually like had enough to have a little mohawk back then at
Nice.
16 years old. It was quite a time, that place. Garforth was actually the name of the village just outside of Leeds where
Yep.
yes, exactly.
Yep.
If anybody knows it, you will understand these reactions well. So, you know, I did like 2 years of training there in musical theatre. And I quickly like just really, to be honest, backtracking a little, I went to audition for a bigger one in London, more Essex actually, called Performers College, before I ended up at SLP that I didn't get into because I went into my ballet audition and I was like, what is ballet? Basically. So that kind of like, you know, they were like, yeah, you're not ready for this place. But in my second year, I went and re-auditioned and I got in. So I decided to move on. And then I went into 3 years worth of training in musical theatre at that college. So collectively, I did 5. But it was it was really great. I mean, I learned so doing 5 years was kind of just awesome. Because, you know, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, you are just doing hours upon end of acting, drama, singing consistently. Like my whole 5 years of my life there, all that. So that was kind of like what I entered into. Actually backtracking and thinking, like prior to that, I went to a part-time stage school where with my good friend Daniel Blacker, who I love very much, we went to this part-time stage school called Stagecoach from the age of 9 through to like maybe 15 or something, where you would do an hour of drama, singing and dance every Saturday. And we were both like very much like, yeah, we're going to be comedy actors. That's going to be our thing. We're going to be comedy actors. Like, you know, both of us were on this track, and still to this day on that track. I kind of derived from comedy acting a little bit, but and now it seems to be coming back full force.
There you go.
Which I'm sure we'll talk about. But
you can't kill Morecambe and Wise or Laurel and Hardy, man. They live on through new people.
Damn straight. Yeah, got all the Laurel and Hardy going on.
And I mean, I know, like, obviously where the story sort of goes, and you pretty much jumped from musical theater after time into deciding you were just going to focus on acting from a film, TV, and to a degree theater, but more film and TV perspective, right? So maybe we can talk a little bit about that period and that shift, because I would imagine a lot of people do it or try and do it. I also imagine there's maybe a lot of people that want to, but for whatever reason, stick with what they're familiar with.
Hmm.
What was the thought process or processes, I suppose, around that time,
Yeah.
and what was the feeling that made you decide, you know what, fuck it, I need to go and do acting?
Oh, wait. Hang on a second. I've got some glitch. Your default speaker has changed. Oh, internet connection is unstable.
Oh no, you're
Oh,
back. Whoa,
ah, wow.
that was great. That's staying
That was
in.
shining for a moment. I was like, right here.
I was like, why is Uncle Fester trying to come and kill me through the screen?
Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah. If they do another Adams Family movie, um,
They should.
well, they kind of just did one, this animated one. I haven't seen it yet.
No, live action. They got to go
Yeah,
live
live
action.
action is the way forward. That transition is what I get. Yeah, what I last said is like getting that transition from going from theatre into film and TV, and that decision and the thought process in that. So yeah, I was on a cruise ship at the time, and I was on this cruise ship for 9 months. We were an inaugural cast, which means we started the whole thing up from top to tail when it was being dry docked, all the way through to having its first bunch of cruises. So that was a really amazing experience. But and those contracts are the types of contracts for a musical theatre performer, are the types of contracts you can just renew and renew and renew and renew. And you know, a lot of people, I think, from what I know, stay on them and then they buy a house and things like that. You know, and you really can do all that. And especially back then, they were like, I think the pace changed a lot for musical theatres over the performers over the years. Back then, it wasn't too bad, but yeah, I think it was in the last couple of months that I was like, huh, that time's coming up, and I got an offer from the entertainment company that run the shows for these ships, to go back on as a singer dancer again, and I was just kind of like, I don't think that is what I want to do, and I was like, well, maybe I should just go back to London and go back and just, you know, anchor myself there and become this, just go into commercial dancing, because I really enjoyed that and I enjoyed doing hip hop dancing and whatnot. And so I kind of went to do that, and kind of quickly realized that uh, that wasn't really my jam. You know, it was like, it kind of was, but it wasn't. I could book some jobs, but it wasn't something that would fly for me. And a friend of mine, a dear friend who I don't get to see as often as I'd like now, but he had an injury. He came back from We Will Rock You on tour, and he was like, because he was injured, he was looking for something else. And he was like, man, I've heard this amazing place called the Actors Temple in London. Like they based themselves in Meisner, and they've had loads of people booking jobs coming out in there, and da da da. And at this point, I was like, oh yeah, I remember at college being like really enthralled doing this play called Spring Awakening, where I played the lead. And then I had a lot of like feedback from like you know, the director of that, saying like, yeah, you've got something here and you might want to consider that. Back when I was like this musical theatre dancer, I was like, yeah, sure thing, yeah, whatever, pal. I'm going on a cruise ship now. Um, and I think like what happened later down the line, once Ollie came up and started saying, hey, we should go and retrain and do this. Have you thought about this? And I was like, you know what? Like, yeah, I'm going to be open to that. I'm going to put myself in this 16-week intensive course, which was 5 days a week for 4 hours with the same coach called Gary Condes. He's amazing. And I just did that on end. And yeah, that was kind of my entry point into acting, into, you know, the film TV world in terms of being retrained and kind of understanding what acting kind of is. I guess was where I was like, yeah, there's something about this process that is I love. Like I enjoy this type of fun, this connection, this depth, this like exploration, you know, of self and other people in this really weird little dark basement in the middle of Warren Street in London. You know, there was just something very kind of weirdly profound about it. And so like, I mean, after having that training, I knew right away I wanted to really focus on the TV and film world more than the theater world. Um, I guess because like yeah, I just kind of I understood. I guess I understood I could see what the magic of film and TV was from where I was sitting at that point, going, oh yeah, you can really get a wide reach with that medium, and you could really kind of tell a story that could reach a lot of people and maybe kind of make them feel different about themselves or their interactions with the world. That's kind of cool.
So is that the thing? Was it more about being able to express and then have that reach of people actually getting to hear the story, or was it just the feeling of expressing? You know what I mean?
You know what? Like, I guess if I take myself back to it, the initial feeling, I guess I'm speaking about what I feel about things now as well. But
Mhm.
going back to that initial feeling at that time was like, oh, there's a lot of stuff in me that I'd like to express.
Sure.
Like, there was like a self indulgence to begin with, for sure. I think of like, huh, I've got a depth to me that needs to be communicated, you know? Um,
Well, it's like
I think,
therapy too, right? Like if you go to good classes, and even if it's not class, you know, on set in a deep role, it can be therapeutic, or at least if not therapeutic, like you said, you're having to delve into deep aspects of human psychology and wiring, and you start to sort of see things from different perspectives. And I think there's a lot of value in that for everybody. I think there's that Hugh Jackman quote where he said he thinks everybody should do an acting class at least once in their life,
yeah.
um, just because of what it opens you up to. And I think it is a bug if you do a good class. You know, if you go into a good space, you can really get hooked to that. And then from there, it's like, watch out because you're in it for life if you're not careful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's 100% true. So I guess it was really that kind of just brought me back around into it.
And I think one thing that's pretty clear from what you've been talking about with the musical theater and even before that, and then retraining or training in an acting space is that idea of training, right? And like I know you've gone to other schools since. Obviously, we met at a different studio at AMAW in London. Now in LA, you're doing even more training and always kind of sharpening those tools. So that's obviously really important to you. Um, I think sometimes not everybody sees the value, if that's the right word, of training as an actor. So it'd be cool if you maybe could speak to that a little bit. You know, your experience of training in that discipline, and then how valuable you actually think it is, especially for new people starting out. You know.
yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, what you said off the bat is a discipline. I mean, I think that like that's the first thing is like, how disciplined can you be about what it is that you want to do and bring value to, like if you want to bring value to something, you need to practice it like almost pretty much daily. So to go to a class once a week is one part, but also like I guess on top of that, speaking like of like what it does, in self development terms, go into a weekly acting class. It's just self discovery. The thing is about us as human beings is that what I keep learning about like that there is not the well is not like there's no stopping point. It's infinite. Like you keep swimming down into these depths. The deeper you go, the more amazing it gets. It's not like it's like it gets dark and scary. There are definitely dark and scary parts you go down into, but like to consistently show up in a space every week to kind of just have this openness about how deep you want to go is, I mean, that's how you bring value to every set you walk on or every audition you come into, is like how open you are to going further and deeper with yourself, expressively understanding, human interactions, how we interact on the surface, but what's really going on underneath. It changes all the time. Like, I think like, I mean, look, I think us being in this space right now, and how long I've known you and how long you've known me, if we track ourselves back for however long when we first met each other to now, it's like, well, how, there are still things in us that are like exactly the same because, things are relatable, but there is still going to be ways of how we deal with each other or other people that are probably most likely very completely different to how,
Yeah, and
we're
and
there
that's
now.
that's life experiences as well is a huge thing. And I think that was going to be my sort of next question, really, which is there's one thing I suppose, which is going deep in the work and committing to working in that capacity in a class or with a script for a film. But then there's that other side of it, which is not the work you do implicitly in those spaces, but just what's happening in your life and what kind of life are you living to broaden your horizons and enrich who you are as a person, right? Because if you don't have that, then you don't really have the most well-rounded stories to tell, or you're going to be limited in your viewpoint on it. So that's evolved for me over time, for sure. As we get older, I guess we get wiser, if that's the word to use. What's your take on that? Like, at what point do you feel that the training and the life experiences go either hand in hand, or maybe perhaps the life experiences start to even take on a little bit more weight?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know if this is answering it. I'm just going to kind of spitball off of that because they can be two very separate things if you let them be. One can always influence the other. Okay, these are my thoughts. This is going to be kind of like, the first thing that came to me really is that, like, I feel like my life experience informs my acting way more than any training ever could.
Yeah.
Like that is where I feel like, and the more that I move throughout life and the more that I am challenging myself to be open, honest, authentic, and have curiosity, mainly being that being the main pin.
Yeah.
If you, that influences more opportunity to explore in my acting. However, also training, it depends, because if you start to kind of look at things in terms of genre and what's being asked of you, and then sometimes and this is actually about people, because this could be also a certain room, writers, executives, directors, whoever can maybe expect something of you in a certain genre. So it's also kind of like, that's like the cerebral part, which, like, you gain the knowledge. We watch shows and we understand things. Whereas I think there are certain types of training that can really help gear you towards that, and also provide material that gears you towards that. I think that's like an extra edge that you can get as an actor, because you can still walk authentically into a space and really own it and have that energy where people will really love you. And because you love yourself enough to be there and bring all your life experience to the table. But then there's that extra edge as well. So I think there is still this balance. For me, I guess today is really about, how can I bring myself within the capacity of the genre? Like, really, fully, and have those people on the other side understand that I understand story, but understand how to bring myself to it.
That's key. And I think that sounds really easy, but I think we all know that that takes a lot of time. And again, that discipline word of being able to do that. And I think, yeah, look, from my point of view, I'm with you. I think there's a fusion of life experiences and training, or good training. I keep saying good training because you probably, like me, have had bad training as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. I think the way I see it is, it's kind of like your life experiences are all the different ingredients. So the more life experience you have, the more ingredients you can play with. But then the training gives you all the different tools to make the dish with. And so it's sort of like, I need to have a sharp knife or a blender, or, a certain kind of, pan to put in the oven. And that comes with the different training approaches. You know which one to use at which time. But then at the same point, if I've only got 3 ingredients to play with, maybe I want to add more in. Or at least then I want to know, well, those are my 3, and I'm going to make sure I can do the best fucking dish I can with the 3 that I got. It's a really weird analogy.
I like it.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah. But look, also, I just want to add, like, to that, again, my own experience, the life stuff. I just find that all the adversity that I've been like, it's been kind of like seeping into my life lately is that, look, my brother-in-law said to me, like, he always says to me, what's the lesson? Right. And I find, like, if anything kind of like negative comes at me in life, if I frame it as what's the lesson and be open to it, it adds more to, rather than kind of deflecting off with, like, batting it back or resisting it. That all that resistance seeps into everything else. That's the one thing that I've really found, is that like if I kind of get a softness around it and go, okay, this is happening, this is tough, I understand that, I'm going to acknowledge that this doesn't feel good, but at the same time I'm going to go, so what is this telling me really? Like, and then that creates some kind of opening that can be utilized in, especially in this field of acting that we know. Like, I feel like that really just opens up more doors than it is to kind of just have this vicious reaction of such, this is happening to me, I hate the world.
Which is the ego
normal
basically saying, I've got to save myself. And it's going to happen sometimes. I think, I spoke to someone about this the other day, and I don't think it's the idea that you should never, ever, ever have those reactions again. And if you do, judge yourself to high holy hell, because that's not healthy. It's going to happen. And sometimes that's okay. One slips through the net. It's not that you're a bad person. So I think it's also being kind enough to yourself to know that you're human and that's going to happen sometimes, but that at least you're aware of it and it doesn't happen on autopilot. I think that's sort of the key, right?
That's the opening, yeah.
But I think what you're talking about is, it's liberating because it's really just talking about being accountable to yourself. Like, even if you could point the finger, and you might be well within your right to say, this happened and oh my God, like it's all against me and it's this person's fault, and you'd be right. Within every kind of will of the world, you could be right with what you're saying.
Yeah.
It dissipates your power, whereas actually, whilst it might not be accurate, if you just say, no, it's all my fault. Even if it's not your fault, if you just assume it, you can actually change it, because then it's on you. And I find that's a little bit of an easier way to sort of maneuver through things, because then it's not about anybody else.
Right. Yeah, totally. I've been hearing it a lot lately as well. Just take accountability for everything in your life, even when it's not your fault, is something else that I've even heard. Yeah, it's so bang on.
It's interesting.
It's ownership. It's needed in all parts of our lives. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, especially in this space, when you have to go and work openly as an actor, you have to be able to access that without ego. Otherwise,
man, it kills everything, that thing. Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, the audition process, or auditions that, you've had. Because I think that's like an anomaly to some people, especially that don't know the world, or maybe people that are just starting out that have different expectations.
Sure.
So there's a question, like, what was your view or expectation of what the audition process was like before you really dove into that world versus now that you've had a lot of experience doing it? That's kind of interesting to me.
Yes. Well, look, I mean, I started out auditioning as a dancer. Are you asking about as the acting rooms, or are you asking about
Well, fair enough. I mean, I suppose the acting rooms initially, but then perhaps from a dancing perspective, it'd be good to know too, because maybe different medium, but it's still that idea of you're the product, you're being evaluated, or feel like you're being evaluated, especially if it's your first experience of that.
I can only speak from my own experience. So I'm going to start off with what the dancing stuff did.
Okay. Oh shit.
And move into what happened with.
What did it do, man?
Well, because and also it's actually a valuable thing. I'll explain why, but I guess the thing is the dancing stuff. Like, the thing is, when you're training as a dancer in musical theater, singing, whatever else, you're just always in rooms and groups dancing, right? You do dancing groups and whatever else. You do it then in 4s and 2s. Sometimes you'll go and do a solo, whatever. In the audition room, when you show up, like, it's usually a cattle call. And it was back then. I mean, we're talking like, 2008 to 2010, 11 here. So, you'd be showing up to a line. You may have group times or whatever else, and you go in groups, but then also you'll get cut on the spot. So, like, you will be in a room and then you'll be dancing. And then most of the time you're just like, the CD production, whoever it is, the choreographer will go like, right, you, rest of you, bye. Right. So I was very used to that already. I think the valuable thing that I took from that audition process is it just built my resilience. Like I was expecting like at any point to be like, cool, at some point they're going to say you and not you. That's cool. Like that's how it works.
And that's brutal, right? Like for people that don't operate in that kind of world and have a
Yeah.
regular job, that's hard to maybe comprehend because that's cutthroat. Like
Yeah.
that can end, not end, but that can really hit somebody and keep them out of commission for a while. You have to be resilient, as you were saying, and have a real thick skin, because if not, that can get to you.
Totally agree with that. Especially with the day and age that we've moved into now, there's a lot more sensitivity around sensitivity. To if not for a better word. So, but I think like that was the greatest attribute I guess I got given as a dancer was that resilience was built into you. I've had a chair thrown at me for being off my mark before. So that wouldn't happen now.
Were you in Whiplash? This sounds like Whiplash.
JK was just there.
It was just thrashing you with chair.
Yeah.
Or were you auditioning for some wrestling dance thing where they were just hurling you with chair shots? That'd be cool.
That would be a fun show to watch.
I'd watch that. Yeah.
Yeah. Write that one down. We'll talk about that later. There he is. There's.
I'm not dancing.
So I guess that they're moving into the look. It wasn't always like rainbows and butterflies. We were going, hey, yeah, sure. Like obviously, I mean, growing up being quite an emotional person anyway, I definitely had some reactions. I was like, oh, and I remember this one audition. I was just so close to getting on board with this amazing agency that was just top of the game back in the day, and for dance, and this commercial dance agency. And I got down to the last three guys, and two of the guys were so well known in the commercial industry for dancing. And the counts just came in just a little bit too quick, where I wasn't able to start on time. And that was the other thing. Once that happened, my belief went out the window.
Oh, because you just thought
I just thought, that's it. I can't catch up. I can't do it. That was going through my head whilst I was still trying to. I know I was literally about like 2 counts behind, which is absurd. So like, where these two guys killed it, and that was it. That didn't happen. I walked away from that one going, God damn. Like, I was coming to spot. I was like, when you work so hard, then it just drops. So I've had those feelings. But of course, I guess with the film and TV rooms, like, it was my first major, like, film audition was with a casting director I knew really well. I was nervous as hell. Still, actually, I was about to say, like, it was more comfortable. I was like, no, I think even because I knew him too well, and I also did some work with him as an assistant too.
Yeah.
That I was like, I mean, the second take though, we absolutely nailed it. It was the first take I was a little bit scared. I just kind of like, the role wasn't massive, but it was just, and I knew what that room was like. I even knew what it looked like. I'd actually read with people in there before as a reader. So I had all this familiarity. And I was thinking like, okay, great. So this process of see these actors walking in the room, they're prepared, they're dressed nice, and, they know where the camera is, but they can pretend that it's not there and just really engage with this other person and just do their thing. And I was like, yeah, okay, great. I know what that is. And then, but just walking into that space and having that experience from that point, like of, okay, cool. This is now where you deliver. Definitely threw me off for the first time. Like, I still got the words right, but my take wasn't essentially engaged. So I think like then just kind of just taking a moment to take a breath and relax and just take on the note and just go for it and really commit and be there is always the challenge in those rooms. Like if you want to, you've got to really know the story. You got to really just connect with it and like just like have a true connection with this story that you're doing right here, right now. And then just like, look, even if you have that reader, I get actors all the time talk to me about like how oh no, but the readers just talk like this, so I can't connect to them. No, bullshit. Of course you can connect to them. Like you just need to kind of just understand that you know how to communicate the story through your own medium. And you hear the words and that does something to you. If you hear those words, it has to do something to you. The words, like writers are really good. Like,
But I mean, what you're saying there with people who say that goes back to that thing of accountability again, right? Because you're looking for an out already. You're looking for an excuse to save you from even committing and going all in, because that's a mindset thing. I think
It's so important. It's one of the top things.
it is the top thing. There is no other. I mean, with anything, not
Yeah,
just
it is.
this, but whatever you're doing, like that's the game, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm with you because I think everyone's had that period with auditions at the beginning where you have the nerves or you think you've got it down, but you don't, and you're learning the ropes. And for all anyone can tell you, and all the expert advice, and it's totally great and sound advice, and anything we might even say now that could help somebody who's just starting out, it still doesn't mean shit because you still have to go through it yourself. Like that's just my view on it. I think I'd heard all the great advice in the world, but I remember, some of my first auditions, and they were awful and like so in your head. My first audition was a commercial audition. It was with the casting director that you worked with. So I knew who he was, and it was a big name, and I was like, well, that was in my mind. And then I knew the buyout of the commercial was £25,000. So that's in my mind, and it's my first ever audition ever. And I'd had good training with some people, but not the best. My good training came after that. And I'd done a lot of technical screen training. And I remember going to the room and just looking at the person opposite me and not moving, but thinking that I was doing everything with my eyes, because you get all this bad advice for screen acting training where some people are like, you don't really want to move, you don't want to blink, don't furrow your brow, like, because it's distracting. So I remember, I'm pretty sure I was
be a robot.
And I remember, I think I was just sat there, and it felt like 5 minutes, but it must have been like 60 seconds. And I wasn't really doing anything, but in my head, I'm like, I'm doing stuff with my eyes. And then like they had producers in the room, and someone from like the far side, who must have been like the client, just said, okay, I think we've seen enough. And then we just switched over, and I had to then off camera do the other part for the other guy who was reading it with me. I gave him a great fucking read. I was giving him everything. And like my conversation and talk with the casting director was fine. Like that was the best part, but my performance was dog shit. And it was like all this stuff, the person it was, the office it was, the fee that I could have got, the bad advice of like how to act full screen.
The pressure. Yeah, man.
And you just need to like blast out, I think, a few of them and then get used to it. And eventually after a while, you just go, whatever. I don't care. It's like Mark Ruffalo's whole thing. If he did hundreds of auditions till he ever booked one, I think he just churned them out.
Yeah. Just practice everything without that attachment, and just like, and enjoy the process and just let go. Like, it's you were just making me think as well, like, of like, successful auditions versus the bad ones, and it's I funnily enough, somehow I came across a tape I actually did with my sister, which was an audition back when I was over in the Midlands for Christmas, and it was 2015, I think it was.
Right.
So I was first of all looking at myself like,
who's that?
It's that guy, right? And then secondly, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not like even really, I'm like calculating.
Ooh, come back to me. Ah, man, it was just getting good. Well, this is an awful lull to have in the middle of the show. Well, if you're watching or listening at home, keep yourselves entertained. I'm sure Scott will be back anytime now. He's probably, I'm not sure, eating or something. It's what he does. He eats a lot. We've never had a phone call from him where he's not eating some kind of food. If you can hear me, by the way, Scott, and you are actually there, and this is just your best version of Punked 2.0, then it's not funny. I'm not laughing. Or you've just not paid your internet bill, which we've spoken about. And really, it's high time that you actually paid for those things and avoided doing some kind of community service or court dates because you just don't want to fork out the $50. No, you've definitely left. Well, I'm going to chop this segment up and make it into its own little bespoke clip because I think you guys listening are getting the most value out of it. Uh, Hello, Scott. I'm still recording the show, and I've been talking about you to the good folks who are hopefully watching and listening this. What's happened? Have you like lost power on your?
No, I think my internet is being like it's not. It's actually really good internet here, but for some reason, of course, of all days today, it's gone a bit whack.
Right.
So I'm just doing a reset on it.
Well, I'm putting you right next to my mic, so this is actually great because we can still get to hear you.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I kind of need you to come back into the thing because it's going to be a lot better, and
I got you.
the show will work out.
Okay, well, I guess I'll just pick up from where I left off.
You just pick up from where you left off, dial back in on the link, and if you want to apologize to the good folk that listen and watch to this show, I think there's about.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, guys.
There's like 10 of them.
I'm really sorry about Spectrum Internet and like that they're a liability right now. I apologize on their behalf.
Well, I don't know who Spectrum Internet are, but the stock market's crashed already, so you saying that's just tanked them even further. Well done. I mean,
I love it. Cool. Okay. Yes, I'm very sorry, listeners, for this technical mishap. But we are looking to get connected soon. So,
awesome.
Yeah, pick up where I left off from here. You can hear me fine.
I mean, you're right next to the mic, so you may as well.
Okay. So, I mean, yeah. So I was talking about this whole thing with like bad and good auditions versus bad auditions. Yeah, I mean that one. I don't know how much you heard before I went off, but the one that I did with my sister, like this tape that I just pulled up randomly in 2015 for this audition, and kind of just I could just see me trying. I don't see like my story thoughts or like I'm not in it. I'm just like I can see these pauses and just words, and I'm like, man, like there is something there is something authentic about it, but mostly I can see like what there is not a full human there. You know what I mean? Whereas actually like the ones that like I do recall that were of great value for me to experience, as well as the people who took me on and wanted me in their production. Like just for me was when I auditioned for a guest star for a network show back for the Beebs back in the day, and that audition I remember so well because, I mean, first of all, also I really related to the story because it wasn't due to it was a sense of a loss of a parent, which I relate to, right? So there is that, and it's not like the parent was passing, but they were a loss to alcoholism and all this kind of stuff, and and I was supposed to be his talent manager. He was like an old blues jokesy comedy stand-up act and trying to relive that, but he keeps sending himself to booze because he's not back on his feet with it, so I'm trying to run these shows to make him feel better, and there was just a lot that I related to, like trying to just bring a parent back, I think, for me, and as well, at that time, I'd done a lot of training at MAW in London with you, Ash, and that also brought a great sense of like ownership for me, like how to just really come into a room and this is the story I'm going to tell, and I just really feel like that has the greater value because I remember coming into that room and I just knew a lot of the story. I knew of my feelings and thoughts towards this role and what to put into it and this connection with this father and that I just let all of myself be available to it. And I didn't care about any of the preparation that I did by the time I got to the room, which was maybe the main key factor, is that I really let go of any kind of reads that I was once doing in preparation for it. where you're supposed to do this here, do that here. It wasn't. It was really just free flow in the room of like, all right, I'm just going to offer myself up I'm just going to be really open to whatever happens in the room. And I just remember the director kind of I didn't know what was going through his head at the time, because it was decided after a take. I did one take of 3 scenes. There were 3 scenes, I did one take of each. Because after each take, he was like, the casting director was like to the director, he was like, do you want to do another one? And he was like, and I saw him thinking, kind of like, I didn't know what he was thinking. He was like, no, let's go on to the next one. And then it was after that I realized, and they put me on the job, and I spoke to him. He was just like, yeah, you just brought a lot of love and compassion to it that I hadn't seen in anybody's. And I was like, oh. So I think that's the other thing, right? Is that you can connect compassionately and empathetically to material as an actor, and then tweak when necessary to really engage within the story, and actually tell the story as the writer's written. You're golden. But the main thing is, mindset-wise, is to like just let go of anything that you think is the right thing to do, and just like really just be there with somebody and experience that. You know what I mean?
And I think sometimes it is a big case of the story resonating with who you are as a person, and then you just channeling through whatever feelings that brings up for you, and letting that sort of just be without prejudging too much about what you think it's supposed to be in this particular part of the page, because it says that this has to happen in a certain way, or because it's a BBC show, it's got to feel a certain way. And just play. I think play is kind of the big word that helps in the audition room a lot, right? And the BBC guys are pretty good with that. I know the sort of 3 or 4 times I've been into the rooms with them, you're lucky because the director's usually there, like you said. And I think that's always a really helpful thing, because you get a lot of time to play and explore in those where maybe in others you don't always have that. And I've always found that really valuable.
Say that one thing again, just for me. So I'm also dealing with this internet stuff at the same time.
And you can't multitask because you're a guy. Yeah, we can't.
It's also got like one bit potential on the other, and I'm like, oh god.
Exactly.
It's trying to connect you. Sorry, yeah. It's Google's work. I'm able to search and get on Google, but anyway, yes.
30 seconds or so. You'll be back online in a few seconds. We'll kind of just shoot the shit this way for a little bit, and then get back to some deeper chats when you get back on to the good stuff. This is the best part of the show. People are gonna love this part.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you mind repeating that last thing to me that you just
I was just saying about how like the BBC are really good for actually giving you a lot of playtime in the room, and usually the director's usually there, which isn't always the case.
No, not always not.
And I think that, in my experience, has led to some of my favorite auditions. Like, I've not booked them, but I've always felt, like you said, that you've really got the opportunity to play with the text in the room and really give something, and actually sort of leave something behind that makes a mark, whether you get it or not.
Yeah, and I think that also that despite any time given, you have to walk into those rooms, right, with that energy either way, that you like, because it's your time.
Yeah.
It's the other thing that we struggle with as actors, is that like thing like, thank you so much for the opportunity. For like, no, hell no. Look, gratitude's great, but it's not about that. Like, you are a solution to the problem. Like and when you get to go into these rooms, like the opportunity is to go in and play exactly like you say. It's to go in and play and like experience and give the other people experience through you experiencing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's really that, rather than kind of like, squeeze yourself into that space of like, oh my God, like you've picked me out of so many actors and there's 10 of us here for this one role, or 20 for this one role out of like probably thousands, and things like, no.
Yeah, that desperation isn't going to work. You don't want to walk in and be like, yes, sir, may I have another, sir? Please, sir, please. It's like...
Yeah, and it's so easy for us actors to kind of slip into that mindset, and it's like, well, that's the bigger challenge, is to kind of like just like shut that down
and be more open to the fact that you have this opportunity, but it's yours. Like, this is your time, and it's really all about the value that you're bringing from yourself. It's you know what I mean. It's not for anyone else.
Just enjoying the fact that you're actually acting that day, even if it's in an audition. I remember reading Al Pacino's biography, and he literally said when he got an audition back in the day in New York, he was over the moon because he knew that that was his few minutes of getting to play. Oh, are you back?
I'm back in. Yeah, I love it. Thank God we did that. That's great.
I'm not gonna lie, that was a new one for me.
No, that's pretty good. I'm glad we kept it going.
Oh yeah, I kept it going. I talked a lot of shit about you when you weren't around, but you'll get to find that out later.
Nothing's changed, Ash.
But no, it would never change. No, I think there was some interesting points. Hopefully that did pick up on the audio, but I think the key thing from what we were just talking about is that idea of when you go into the room and it's an audition, it's your chance to just own it for yourself and not to sort of go in thinking like you owe anybody anything, feeling like you have to live up to someone's standards. Obviously, you know, you've been on the other side. You made that really, in my opinion, bold choice to get experience of working in a casting office. And I think that probably gave you a lot of insight that many people don't get. So you've seen it on the other side. Like, I guess, firstly, how did that experience change your perception of the audition process as an actor? And then, I guess, secondly, to double barrel it, what advice would you give to actors who are going into the room, especially new, they've not auditioned much, with your knowledge of that in mind, given that you're one of us as an actor too?
Yeah, for sure. That's great. I think I'll come on to the advice for actors second, as per the question. The perception thing. So yeah, man. Do you know what? Like, I gotta say though, I don't know whether sometimes I feel like it might be a double-edged sword because I might be too relaxed about how casting works when I go and audition for a role myself these days. So I'm like, yeah, there's so many numbers to get through, but it's also like, you know, it is valuable to know. The thing is, casting moves so quickly and things change at any moment. Like, something could be shooting tomorrow and something changes tonight. Like, literally, that's how, especially in the world of TV, I've learned more than film. That doesn't mean to say that film doesn't change that quickly either. So, but then also, and especially, look, I'm going to say a little bit more about TV because I've experienced a bit more of what that world is lately. I think film is definitely more relaxed than TV. There's more time. The fact of, like, you know, locking actors in, they can be locked in quite long before. So, and that can be fine. If looking at studios, then there's more execs to deal with. So what happens when there's more execs to deal with is that there's more decision makers, and they may have different opinions about what they think they need in the production in order for the production to be successful. So let's talk on the subjects of, like, you know, even in diversity, they could decide that we've got too much of this and we need a bit more of that. Rightly so. So we need to balance stuff out. That can actually change at any point throughout the casting process. That's one thing I've experienced before. The other thing is, like, some people have different kind of perception about acting, like about types of acting and what it should be, and that doesn't mean that anyone's a bad actor. Like, art is so subjective. Like, you know, someone who's the money will have a different perception about what acting is over a director, but sometimes those things clash. Can't do anything about that, right? And it depends on the scale of the director, like, you know, how big the director is, how much they've done, as to whether they can overpower an exec. There's all these different moving parts.
It's all a game of opinions, really, right? It's all just a game of
opinions, yeah. And then, but, like, also, the thing is like, obviously, from what we've been talking about, is that, and for me being a reader in a casting room, is that if you come in with not owning it, you can be nervous, but if you're not owning it, it's red in 2 seconds flat. If you're not really and by that I mean just coming in And even if you might be feeling a little bit kind of like GB, you know, whatever it is, and just come in with that, and just, but if you're not on that track of like going, hey, yeah, I've got something here, and I'm just gonna give it to you. If you don't do that, then just like, well, that can be a very quick cross off, and like, hey, that's, you know.
But I think, you know, a lot of times an actor might come into a room, especially early on, and they're worried about this idea of having to please and be perfect. And we've spoken how that's not the way to go, but that maybe doesn't happen overnight. That comes over time. And I think there is a lot of preciousness around thinking that you've got to be word perfect, or if you say a word wrong, or you forget a line, or you flub something, you feel like you fucked it, you know? And I think sometimes an actor might shoot themselves in the foot if that happens in the room. I suppose, you know, what's your take on that sort of stuff? How much of that really weighs into it, or how much of it do you not really bother about it too much if you see the actor is just able to be calm with it and move through?
Just fucking go for it. I mean, I don't think there's any other formula other than like, just, there is no formula. You like, look, the thing is, I mean, I guess what I've learned in the States though, there's a lot more niches in terms of genre and specific genre, and how, for example, multicam comedies are written, there's certain wording, and you have to get right that the right is written in order to execute a joke.
Sure.
Not that you can't, like, not that you're just thinking of that. You still have to be very kind of forward with committing to what it is you're bringing. But look, I mean, look, man, just either way, when it comes to crunch time, you just got to go. You know, like, you can't like second guess yourself once you get to that point. Even if you feel slightly prepared, so what? That's the fucking thing. Just go anyway. Bring it to the table, fly, let it be. Don't worry about it. Because that's just going to throw you off if you come in with any of that stuff. So
I mean, and how does someone do that? You know, how does someone might watch or listen to this if they've not cut off with that little sort of mishap we had earlier and they're still listening? It's good advice, but if I'm on the other side of that, I'm thinking, cool, but how do I implement that? Like, how do I do that?
Practice. Like, just, yeah, like, God, if you don't have an acting class to go to, just keep getting in front. My God, like, just get your iPhone, just get in front of a blank wall, set up, like, get an iPhone little tripod thing, or just stack it on a bunch of books if you can't get that, whatever. Get somebody who is interested in acting or already is an actor in your circle, and just keep doing, like, find sides, ask people auditioning for sides, go online, go to, I think scriptnotes.com is another place you can just get sides from. Look for, transcribe a scene from one of your favorite TV shows or films, put that down, practice those like 2-3 pages, maybe that huge Oscar-winning speech you're scared to try and execute for fun. Do that. Do everything that you can to implement the practice. The more that you practice, the less you're going to have this kind of like feeling of like, I can't do it. You know, there's that famous quote of like, you either can or you can't, you're right, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
you know
either way, you're
like,
right.
You know
and
what I mean?
That's sort of an interesting thing you sort of maybe stumbled on when you were saying that was, you know, you said go to class, and then you said, well, practice auditioning. And I think that's a key distinction, right? Because maybe doing a class, the scene study is maybe it's still the same tools, but a slightly different tool set to say auditioning. You know, I think the approach to an audition and what you do in an audition room is very different in many ways to what you do on an actual set when you've actually booked the job. It almost asks different things of you as a person. Maybe not so much as a performer, but as a person, and the mindset and the doubts that come into your head from the audition are very different to what might happen when you book the job. Not to say they don't happen there as well. And yeah, I think your point of practice and maybe self-tapes and sort of practicing that as a discipline is important. Or if you're in the States, I guess there are lots of audition classes that people can take too. Because it is a different skill. Would you agree with that? Or
I mean, like, yeah, this is
yes
what
or
I
no?
This is what I do think. What I think is people just need to understand what a camera sees. One, right? They always so like putting yourself in front of a camera and looking back at the footage will start to tell you that, right? Oh, what else? And really just ask the questions. What is this person telling me right now? Disconnect yourself from like it being you and just look at yourself objectively and see what's this person telling me in the story. So you start to like just get used to the fact that like you have a technical thing of you in front of a camera and what that frame does. How wide or close can it go? Start to get interested and curious about what it is cameras see, right? Because once you got like the one thing that I learned earlier on, when I was still part of the Actors Temple way back when, and we did a film course and made our own film off the bat, which is when me and my friend decided to go make a film in India. Maybe we'll talk about that a different time. But we certainly should. And then what I learned very quickly there is that the more I did that, it just became a part of me. It's like driving. Like the technical points of being on camera just got inset in me, right? So I think it's just really just putting yourself in that environment as much as possible in order to understand it will help you disconnect from the fact that you're in it. Now that sounds counterintuitive to being connected, but you need to disconnect from the fact that you're in a small box room with the camera pointing at you, right? That's what you need to forget about. What Scene Study does and Scene Class does with all that, plus with some audition classes, still teach you how to walk in that space and really fucking own it. Right. So I think it's that really. It's just for me, it's like the camera stuff, the audition technique really for me is just understanding what a camera does in that room so that you like you've done it so many times that it's just second nature. It's just in the back of the mind. It's unconscious that just happens. Like I know what this frame is doing right now. I'm not thinking about it. To pairing it with I fucking got this, and I know the story. I know what to bring to it. I know what value I'm bringing to this room. We're gonna have a lot of fun together.
And then I guess, like you were saying before, from your experience in the casting process, having that wherewithal that after all that, it still isn't in your hands because a zillion other factors and opinions come into play of other people beyond just the casting person you met that day. And I think once you get a grounding of that side of the business and how that actually operates, you realize that it's just a game of permutations and numbers and just continually doing it and playing the game, I guess, and finding peace in that. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself nuts.
Yeah, I feel like Bryan Cranston's got an amazing book called Life in Parts that everybody who is looking to, be an actor should read, and people who are just interested in life should read too. But what he did with his audition sites is as soon as he did his audition sites, he had a little sides bin in his office or something, or somewhere in his house, that he would, after he's done the audition, he'd come back, take the sides, and he'd shove them in the bin. That was his process of letting go of it. Like, that moment's over now. And then when he'd get a call back, he'd pull it out of the bin and go, oh, yeah, I remember this guy. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I know what I'm doing with this. But even that action of just, it's gone. Like, we have to have that because nothing ever just gravitates towards you if you're trying to squeeze it. You know what I mean? Like things don't like being squeezed. I think it literally. All right, yeah, here we go. It was gonna pop up somewhere. This dark sense of humor.
I've not said anything. Let's keep going. It's a PG.
No, you just made a face. For those listening on the podcast, try and find the video. Just watch his face and whatever. You can give a time code later, Ash.
It's fine. My YouTube show is not for kids. I have to select that button now. So
yeah. I love how they have that as an option. It's good. Yeah. So just whatever.
Throw it away.
Just throw it away. Like once it's done, it's done. Same with everything. We have to apply that to a lot of things in life too. I feel,
Exactly.
Holding on to stuff, it just creates blah in your head and in your heart.
And so, look, I guess we'll finish on your casting life and sort of what you did there with this, which is it would have been very easy, I would imagine, to stay in that world because you'd been in it for almost a few years, if memory serves.
I think it was almost 3.
Yeah, right. You were getting deep in it. You were really valuable to that office. They really sort of learned to lean on you and give you a lot of responsibility, great opportunities. Many people would have not forgiven you for deciding to go down that road. But again, sort of like with the musical theater side of things, you sort of made a choice consciously to go, but I don't want to be that in perpetuity. Like you had that awareness still to go, and say, great, I've got this experience. It's been a great ride, but I got to keep focused. Like, what was that period like, if you're comfortable speaking to
It
that?
was messy, man. It was messy. Like, it was great. It was amazing. It was valuable, but it was messy.
But I'm
think, like,
thinking more from the point of view of like somebody might look at that and go, what the hell's wrong with you? You have a good deal. It's like an ongoing thing. You've got continuous
well,
work. You could just be happy. You got a continual paycheck. You're working in film. That's the industry you're into. And yet still you were like, nah, but like, not now. You could have fallen down a black hole that wouldn't have resonated for you.
totally. No, I mean, I think also by the way of saying it's messy is because, like, my mind was messy with being torn about what it is I need to keep moving forward with. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
The experience I had in that casting office was next to none. It was amazing. The value that, just all the knowledge that I got, and the opportunities that I got with people I got to read with, and then meet in terms of film producers and directors, and understand how, I mean, it's the first day I understood how American TV works. So there was lots of great stuff there and how these people operate, right? So yeah, it was, what was it? It was moving away from it eventually. Like, I mean, I went into that office with that like typical actor agenda of, I'm going to go and learn about this so that I can like get enough traction to start booking roles that, uh, yeah, I'm doing it so I can get some more auditions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which did actually eventually materialize. Once they saw that I could act, then it was going great, and that was great. And then, yeah, but the thing is, I mean, look, you can work in that casting office from 9 in the morning to sometimes like anything between 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. at night, depending. If you're working with America, it can go even further. I mean, one of the associates worked until after midnight at one point. So for me, it started to become like, okay, well, I'm in an office job. As much as I'm also reading, getting to read with actors at times, like there are times when it really became an office job. And that's where it started to feel really messy and sticky for me. And that I also then wanted to be in this position of really focusing on what's true to me, and what was true to me was acting. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so for me to peel away from that, yeah, it was tough because it's a space where, I mean, I loved everybody in the office. Like, they're amazing. They were great, fun people. We had incredible projects come through the door. I was meeting people who like, and making relationships with people that were like actually valuable, like in terms of like the career, you know. But I knew that like if I kept carrying on doing that, that it's like that's all. It was almost feeling like it was almost I was just becoming that. Like I am now cast.
Casting.
I'm just people. Scott casting Scott, and it's like I was like, whoa, that's not true. I love that you associate and know like what I'm doing. That's amazing to be acknowledged that way. Thank you so much. But also I'm like, okay. If you're looking at it from a brand perspective, no. Like, I just wanted to be in
How
that.
much of that was like actors and how much of that was just the broader industry?
It's a very good question. I think the majority might have been actors.
Because I
know,
feel like
there are also some
no.
some producers. Yes, there were some producers as well that associated me with that until it was any of the directors who, I got to audition for. Like, oh, I had no idea.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, wow, I had no idea.
I guess
I
it's
was
because a
like,
lot of people do go into casting from different backgrounds. There are a lot of people that trained as actors that then go into casting and then they just stick with it. And so I suppose for you to go the other way and come out and go, no, I'm an actor. I always have been. Maybe isn't as common.
you know what, Ash, as well, like, this is the real part of it. And I was thinking about this the other day, because the thing is, I could have stayed as a musical theater performer on cruise ships, and I didn't do that.
And be
Right?
comfy.
And I was like, and I was just like, man, there is just if this, like, I think you really want to know, if you want to do this, if there's something inset in your heart, there is just something in it. It's like, and I was thinking, is that there? Yeah. Like if I'm leaving all of these great opportunities that I'm just stepping into, doing well in, and moving away from it, there is something in that that's telling me like, yeah, this isn't going away. Like, so persevere and like stay open to the opportunity of the track that you're on. You know, don't worry about forking off for a moment. As long as it comes back onto the track, that's okay, because you might pick up a few new passengers that are worthy, like, and you'll go back onto the same track and keep going down that road. But really know, like, it's like knowing a core value. It's like, what's at the core and what's driving you. And like, and I'm still sitting with the question today for me is like, why is it acting? I'm really curious as to like, what's the actual truth about why it is that I'm doing this or that anyone else is. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I got some ideas, but I think they're just ideas right now, you know? And I think the question to sit with that why all the time right now is just a value for anybody who even wants to step into this from the beginning, in the middle, or towards the end. Like, just keep finding out, because sometimes I'm like, why am I sometimes I go to acting class and I'm like, what am I doing here exactly? You know, I know what I need to do, but I'm like, why is it that I'm here? And that's interesting. And like, I don't know. I just think it's and there's a reason, but it's just really kind of having a deep knowing about that reason, you know.
And maybe you don't always have to know, you just kind of roll with it. You know what I mean? I think it's important to know your why with whatever you're doing, but I think sometimes you can overthink it and then you sort of psych yourself out a little bit too. I think a lot of it is a feeling and an emotion and a state of being that's a bit bigger than yourself. And I think you can't quite describe that or put it in words. And I think that's what acting is in many ways, because you're sort of just not just storytelling, but beyond that, tapping into something that is potentially bigger than you sometimes. And you get those moments. I spoke about this a while ago, and it's kind of those moments that keep you coming back, that connection, whatever you want to call it. It's like there's no label that does it justice when it's in that flow. And I think that's what many artists try and find. It's that flow, right? And man tries to replicate it, but you can't. Like, there's no replicating it, there's no duplicating it. It's just fresh every time. And that's the biggest natural drug I think you can find. And once you've had it once, you want to keep coming back to have it.
Yeah, true. Can you do that shoulder roll you just did again with the flow?
This thing. Yeah, I can do that.
ABBA used to do, man.
Yeah, is what who used to do?
ABBA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. A music video, bit of a shoulder roll.
Yeah, you know, that's my MTV pop culture coming back out, or VH1, or Kerrang. You know, back in the day, when you'd come home and channel flick, and there was like 50 music stations, and they all played like the same music video.
Man, I used to watch music videos like religiously.
Was that like studying?
I don't know. I think it was. When you're like, yeah, all the dances we just used to. And then, like, it got into the realm of, like, making concept videos which everyone still does. Like, they put together their own kind of, like, music video of themselves, choreographed by one of the choreographers, and yada, yada, yada.
It's interesting. It's like a very similar parallel, right, to acting. You kind of still have to upstart and do your own thing and make your demo reel or make some kind of concept video, right? And I think that's maybe a nice little segue. I didn't pre-plan that, but I'm going to give myself props for it. It's, I think a segue into talking about making your own stuff. You know, I think we're both advocates of that. I'm mindful of time. We don't want to wax lyrical because we could go on forever, but you know,
we can always do a part 2.
We could do a pod 2. But you know, top line, you spoke earlier a little bit about picking up and going to India, making a film there. You've made a lot of other films since, and you kind of delved into that world. What's your take on it, and what's the value that you think it has specifically for actors? Because especially nowadays, it seems like everybody should be doing it, and then not many are. So what's your hot take on?
I mean, we had a conversation earlier on the phone before this. It was just the whole thing about, be the studio now. Mm-hmm. Like that's the value right there. You can you can create anything you want now. It's so exciting. You know, I've been out in in the States for a little bit now, and I've been meeting all kinds of actors, and there are people getting picked up by huge management companies just for having a bunch of comedy sketches that is doing well on Instagram. Just
Dude,
Instagram.
I don't think people get it. I really don't think people still get it. I think that's happening, but then people hear it and they have the whole, yeah, but that couldn't happen to me. That's just an anomaly. And that's old time thinking, because back in the day, that would be like a lightning striking thing. But I do feel like if you put in the work and it's consistent, because it's not going to be one thing. Like you were saying, there are people with sketch shows are probably putting out like lots of stuff on a regular basis. But you can access an audience and yeah, then make it to the big
Yeah.
time through that.
Yeah.
And a lot of these management companies and even networks and studios, they have people whose job it is solely to go on YouTube and go on Instagram and
Yeah.
find this stuff. Like it's a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I mean, this is the other thing. The thing that gets in the way of all this, I think, for everybody, and also including myself, and I'm sure you've experienced a bit of this yourself at times, is like perfection of an execution, right?
No.
Yes,
No.
Jordash, yeah. Lie through your teeth, damn it. And
That's what this gap's for, man. That's right. That's what that's
just the
for.
truth comes out of that bit.
That's to lie through that part. That's all it is. I literally will lie through my teeth. I can do it.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Love that.
me and Sam Jackson got that down.
Yeah. I watched the other guys last night, and I forgot how amazing and funny him and The Rock are.
That intro is the best.
It's the best intro of a film I've watched. And I just totally forgot how.
When Foo Fighters plays at the end and it bigs them up, and you're like, "Oh, this is gonna be awesome," and then it just.
Everybody go watch the other guys. Some serious good comedy, love. Basically, yeah, look, the thing is, like, just pick up a camera and go. Like, there is just nothing stopping you. Every smartphone has a decent camera now these days. Like, get it. Like, look, let's like hit it on the nose. Like, we're talking about you doing this podcast right now and how you're operating right now. Just start with what you got and just let it build with where it's going to be. Who the hell knows? Like, just
it's ghetto and see what happens. And the idea is hopefully it's entertaining and inspiring to a handful of people, and maybe it goes somewhere. And look, point blank, I also know that I enjoy doing it, whether anything comes of it. And I'm not stupid. I get that it could potentially open up from a branding perspective and lets me talk to people that otherwise I might not other. Like I'm not selfless. I also have selfish motives, and I'm very candid about that. But it's also, a good chance to talk to people that I enjoy talking to, that I think can add value, and just doing it. Like, if you watch Joe Rogan's early podcasts, everybody looks at it now and they're like, "Oh my God, Joe Rogan." And yeah, awesome. But his early podcasts are him talking to his friends using webcams. A lot of it's like terribly lit, but he just did it. And now, yeah, look where he's at. And
yeah.
That's the same with anything.
Everything. Like, every filmmaker starts out like, most of the time with shots that don't look so great, or sound that isn't. I mean, try and get the best sound you can, but like sound that may not be too great. Maybe actors want the best. Doesn't matter. Like the point is that you can pick up and go and start creating right now. Like, you could do it right now. Like, just decide to come up with an idea, think, you find that kind of funny. Oh, this would be kind of interesting to explore. And then just ask whoever's interested. Email is easy. Text someone. Get some people together and just shoot something for fun. And just do it for fun and in curiosity to learn the medium and how it really works. And furthermore, to progress yourself within it. Like, that is it. I mean, look, my story with a film that me and my friend Lauren went into way back when, 2013. It's called Pendulum. I'm going to plug it. You can find it on Dust.
I'll link it.
You can link it out. We went out, and that was a feature. It did become a short film. We went out completely. We were almost blind to filmmaking, really. She just came up to me in an acting film course at the Actors Temple, that one I was talking about before, and she was like, "Oh, you've got some editing technical skills. You're a great actor. We're playing this relationship as boyfriend and girlfriend in this. We're really good together. Let's make a film." I was like, "Yeah."
Surprise.
It was just like complete. Yeah, I had no idea. Like I just said yes, right? She said yes, and it became this monstrous, huge thing that was
See,
like, what the
acting
hell?
acting informs life. It's that whole acting and improv thing of always say yes and when you do, look where you can go with it, right?
I mean, where we went with it. I mean, we should talk about that experience. We should definitely.
We need to do another thing where it's just about, I think, the creation of projects, going through the process of things like festivals, and just focusing on that for people who just want to focus on
There's a lot
that
of
and that alone.
lessons.
Because but that is how it works. I mean, the project we first did, Color Me Gray, which won't ever see the light of day because the person who set it up refuses to put it out there, which I understand.
Everyone bother Adam Lyons to get that out. Thanks.
Exactly. He won't care. But that came from a joke. Like, him and I went to watch a gig, a band called Happy Daggers, and a track came on, and it had like a bit of a funky beat to it. And him and I were just kind of like bopping like a bunch of idiots. And then it's like a moment where we just looked at each other, and then it was like, oh, imagine if like this guy was in a car with this song playing, driving to a gas station. And then we just like, in the concert, came up with this random concept. And the gas station was going to then explode at the end because Adam likes to blow stuff up and destroy things. But it was a joke. It was a complete, just like 60-second creative brain fart at a gig that then became a short film / TV pilot script that then we filmed with everybody from the studio, that then ended up getting me taking it to the film market in LA and pitching it and almost getting and going to the AFI, not knowing what I was doing because I've never pitched like that before, rubbing shoulders with some pretty big people and some people and getting meetings, and like some of them wanted to actually have us pitch it to different places here back in the UK. And at that point I looked at Adam and was like, well, this came from the kernel of us being plebs in a gig a year and a half ago. And it's like the joke that just kept going and went too far. But sometimes that's all it takes. You got to take a ball and run with it. That's what I guess took you to India. And if you don't do it and don't start, you just, you know what's going to happen if you don't.
Get all these golden nuggets, the best lessons when you just jump into something that is extremely uncertain. You just got to really just go for it. Like, if you think that you need to know something before you execute it, you're wrong. You just got to do it.
That's ego, right? Don't you think?
Yeah. It's just, it's reframing. It's just like, it's really fun to learn on the job. I get to learn on the job. Like, that's amazing. Like, I get to do that.
Well, that's why you get to be an actor and want to, I think, in part, at least me, because you get to do and experience things you otherwise wouldn't in many walks of life. And you get to try different things on a reasonably regular basis. So you're having experiences. There's that shoulder roll for some ABBA love for you.
Love it.
That you wouldn't get to do. And like, why not? We're only here once. Newsflash to people. Like, people could hit the nuke button, or coronavirus could fuck us all up. Bullshit. Dude, I went to the grocery store today. The whole place was like completely empty of hand sanitizer and soap. And I'm like, just, I get it, but I'm also just thinking, come on. Everybody calm down a little bit. But anyway.
I'm going to fund my production company on the sale of toilet roll soon, just so you know.
You should. Excellent. I'm going to buy shares in that toilet roll company so I can get some back end out of this. And I use the word back end literally because it is a pun.
Fantastic.
I mean, I think we probably need to do a separate chat just around content creating and that whole process.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot that hopefully can help. And I get asked about it a lot. I know you do too. I think the one thing, just to wrap this a little bit up, that I think people don't get, and I can leverage because of working in digital marketing, is the role of these platforms. That people still don't get what Google, what YouTube, what Instagram, what Facebook, what Twitter are. They are new age media platforms and communication tools that are effectively replacing the old age stuff that we have in a high pedestal. Commercials, regular TV networks, radio, press, print, they're still here, but they're not as direct and as implicit as this. Like this phone takes away the power that 10 to 20 people or companies had that ran those worlds and gives it to the consumer so that everybody in theory can use these platforms to be their own radio show, their own TV show, their own commercial, like whatever you want it to be. And for businesses and actors who are small businesses unto themselves, when you get your head around that, then you realize that it's actually quite liberating. And there's different types of content. Like I've had it where I think, oh, I've got to make like a festival style film or a feature film or a mini series, but that's like one high end pillar. Why can't you also do small little bits that are an Instagram show? Like TikTok, people are blowing up on fucking TikTok. Like the young kids that are doing it are out of nowhere. There's kids who started doing TikTok videos last August that just did it every day, and then out of nothing, they've built like millions of followers.
Yeah.
And it's not for everybody, but like there's something to it. And if you're an actor, you don't have to wait for an audition to act. You could just act to your phone and put it out there.
Yeah. It's all in our hands now. More than ever. Just go out and do something. Screw it. You know, doesn't mean that anything's easy, but it's accessible. So just do it anyway, and then let it become easy over time. That's the other thing to take away. I think.
Let go of that perfection. I think that you spoke about is the key, right?
Yeah, it's you know what? It's the toughest stone to kick out the way, but it's the one that needs a good kicking. You know?
Oh yeah,
it really is.
Awesome. All right, dude. I have I say this every show now. I think it's my go-to thing where I literally go, I got gimmicks, and I got gimmicks of like little segment-y things that I'm going to do because Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel ain't the only motherfuckers that could do stupid.
Yeah, they.
I think what I want to do with actors specifically is because this is supposed to be on the theme of storytelling. So I'm going to call it Stories from the Audition Room. That's so lame.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so lame that I love it. Come on, dude. Like we spoke a bit about auditions, but give us an audition story. Maybe, I don't know, a bad audition or like something that was just a random quirky thing that humanizes that process. Because we all have them. I have one. I have some I can share too.
I think. Oh man, it's a tough one on the spot because I'm just trying to recall all the different moments. But there is one that's come to the front of my mind, but I'm like, where's that? Probably not.
That's the one.
Is that the one? I think just like I cannot even remember what the word was, but it was an audition in the Umbrella Rooms in Shaftesbury Avenue in London for quite a big office. I think it was the second time going in with them. They got me in for this it was 4 different roles in a film, a very lovely film, and there was this one role that was like this spokesperson at a table, like a conference table with like a speech this long.
Right.
So it takes a little bit to get through this speech, and then there was just this one name at the end that was, I can't remember. It was Manila or something. And it was like, you know, they're moving quite quickly because, you know, time, casting. And for every time, everything was going so well. Every time with that speech got, it was so good. And they were really enjoying, really enjoying it. And I was enjoying it. And then this name would come up at the end. And then I'd be like, Mablika something. And then I was just like, yeah, dude.
You turned into the scat man?
Yeah. And then I was like, can we go again? Yeah. Get through it again. Everything's going great. I get exactly
the same point.
Again. And
God.
And like literally we get to the 3rd time go around of doing it. And then she just starts laughing. The associate who was reading, laughing just before I get to the name because she knew that I was going to do it. So I did. I think we went around 5 times. The fun thing is that she was actually laughing at me because we're just getting through this scene so well, so many times. Just for the life of me, for some reason, this name just wouldn't stick in my head. What I found out later, some other out of my actor mates auditioned for the same role. They did exactly the same thing. So I was like,
Really?
she must have experienced. It was this one name, and I can't even remember now for the life of me what it was, that I just couldn't get in my head to say right at the right time.
It
But
must be
neither
something
about
the way
two other
maybe it was
actors that I
written.
spent. I have no idea. I think it was just the name itself just wasn't familiar or something. So, and because there's quite a lot of speech to get through. So I guess, I don't know, it just doesn't compute when you get there. But I just remember us bawling, laughing at each other in the fourth take because she knew leading up to the name.
You were gonna hit it.
I don't think some of the things that were coming out of my mouth were like Manoko, Manikin. And I was like, no, can't say, don't know what it is,
Minako sounds like a vegan kind of protein bar or something. Hey, have you had your Minako before the gym, bro? Yeah.
It's very really humanized it for me though, like speaking to that, because we had a laugh about it, and I was laughing at myself and she was laughing at me, as opposed to it being like,
Oh my god, I fucked it. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. That's
I
awesome.
think that's a quote that's out there, is just not taking yourself so seriously. I think Judi Dench is a really good one on that. Just don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah, auditions are fun and playful, and like you're gonna have some bad ones and some great ones and some really messed up ones that make for great dinner stories that other people like will never ever experience that by working in a corporate financial district job 9 to 5. Sorry, guys.
Please just share one. Can I just share? I need to share one that I heard on a podcast. It's my brother-in-law was getting interviewed on this podcast. This guy who runs the podcast works at this acting studio with my brother-in-law.
Was it your brother-in-law's audition, or was it the other guys?
Well, my brother-in-law has a different audition story.
Okay,
but
we'll save that.
Brian's, who's the guy who hosts the podcast, and he had a different audition story, which I think is amazing and hilarious.
Okay.
Because he was going into a room for the first time for a really big role out here in Hollywood. And it was like, I mean, this was like, I don't know, 5 years ago or more, maybe. Maybe it was no longer. Maybe it was a decade ago. Anyway, doesn't matter. What happened is that this role required him to, like, he was like, I have to cry in this. Like, I have to get there, uh-oh. So what he did, he read up online that, like, the trick that actors can do sometimes is just use onions.
Yeah.
To get themselves to cry. So, so you apply the onion, like, under your eyes. So
or like some kind of menthol kind of stuff, or sticks, or like what's it called?
I mean, there are sticks, but
there's other things. But
onions. At this time, I don't like the tear sticks. It was onions. So he went to this casting office with pockets full of onions for the first time. And he quickly realized that he stunk of onion.
Yeah.
So he went into this room just like stinking of onion. And also the onions, like, I think he applied it too soon, that like by the time he got to the room, it wasn't working anymore. So then he just went into a room stinking of onion.
With like red puffy eyes from crying earlier or something, maybe.
Yeah, there's some more details about it, but I thought that bit was the best. With that, just he had pockets full of onions.
I didn't realize
don't do that, kids.
Don't actually done that. I saw that in like an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia a few weeks ago, where like the guy goes in and literally shoves some onions under his eye just to try and cry. But I just thought it was a myth. I didn't realize.
Onions back then, they
just don't cry. If you can't cry, don't cry.
Yeah. Don't take onions to casting offices.
Yeah, right. Unless you're in France.
So funny.
Did I ever tell you about the audition I had for that show, Banged Up Abroad, or Locked Up Abroad, I think it's called here?
I remember you auditioning for that, but I don't remember.
It was early on. Because I've auditioned for that show a few times. This was like way back, and it's a crazy story. It's about this guy called Dwight Worker. He was from California, and he basically ends up trying to smuggle, I think it's cocaine or something, in a body cast, because he trained as a doctor. So he applied himself this body cast and put the drugs inside it, thinking he wouldn't get caught. And he travels through South America, and then in Mexico he gets stopped at the border and caught. And long story short, he gets thrown into this prison that's now closed since the 80s. It's been shut, called, I think, the Lecumberi Palace or something. It's known as, like, I think the Black Palace. And basically it's infamous because nobody ever got out of that prison or escaped it are two people in its whole history. One was like this 19th century Mexican revolutionary, and the other is this guy, Dwight from California, who managed to escape. And the way he escaped was he realized that the guards were super wired and on it, and you had like no scope of getting out, except when conjugal visits happened. Like when the women came in and out of the prison, he noticed that the guards kind of let their guard down a little bit, and there was a little bit of a window opportunity. So the guy befriends this woman, and then over time, weeks go on, and each week she brings him in little things to help him, because his plan was to basically dress up as a woman and get out when the conjugal visits end, and go out with a line of women and smuggle himself out. So that's the story. And this would have been for me to go and do that and play this guy. And my agent was like, would you be happy, pretending to be a woman? You'd have to shave your legs on camera. I'm like, yeah, fine. No problem. Like, it's a cool experience to go to Mexico and do it. But the audition. Normally, the auditions are held, like you said, with yours in a casting office or in a studio space. This was held at the production office in a meeting room. So I go to the production office in London, and everybody is just there working, like execs and people who had nothing to do with the casting of the show. And I remember meeting the casting person and producers, going into a room that's adjacent to the open plan office. And the room had that kind of like those frosted windows where it's sort of frosted in the middle 2/3, but the bottom half and the top half are clear.
Uh-huh.
You can make out there's people in there. So I go in the room, and one of the first scenes is the scene where he's being captured in Mexico. So they're like, okay, sort of sit on the floor, and then you're going to say the lines, and my colleague here is going to pretend that he's the guard in the scene, and he's going to taser you, because that's what happens in the scene. And so he's going to taser you with this TV remote. And so I'm slumped on the ground, and this guy's holding a TV remote at me, and he literally just goes bzz, bzz, like makes that sound. And as he makes a sound, I have to pretend that I'm like getting electroshocked. So I'm giving it everything, like I'm flailing my legs, the whole 9 yards. But I suddenly get very conscious of the fact that the glass window is only frosted at 2/3 of it, and the bottom half of it isn't frosted. So anybody outside is seeing the flailing legs of some dude just going mental. And they saw me go in, so they knew that it was probably me. So that's in my mind, because it's not a good look. Then we get to the final scene that they want me to do, which is the scene where he escapes the prison as a woman. And of course, they brought a blonde wig. So the direction was, can you put this wig on and like
You put these high heels on and this skirt on too, please? And
that was if I came for a callback, maybe. But they were like, can you put on this blonde wig? And we want you to pretend like it's almost like you're strutting down a catwalk, but not well, because you're obviously a guy pretending to be a woman. So I'm going to do whatever I think that is. But again, as I'm walking diagonally across this room, I now go and think in my head, this glass, again, it's frosted for 2/3 of it, but not only is the bottom clear, the top half of the glass is clear. But now people on the outside, having seen flailing legs 5 seconds ago, are now seeing this blonde wig on a dude walking through this room. And I just remember walking out of that office and seeing half the room kind of looking at who was coming out, having probably seen the weirdest thing they'd ever seen in that room happen in their lives. Because, yeah, like the crazy stuff that you have to end up doing. And I just remember walking out going, well, whether I get that or not, I'm pretty sure I've entertained about half a dozen people, if nothing else.
I told you, if it's not in your heart.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Awesome. All right, dude. So gimmick number 2 is one of my favorites. It's called What's Trending. And in What's Trending, I go on Twitter and I see what's trending in the city or country that you're living in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're gonna, see what's going down and
all right,
and talk about that. So, L.A. Oh shit! Well, Chuck Norris is trending. That's. I hope he's not fucking dead, man.
Yeah.
Chuck. Oh no. Happy birthday, Chuck Norris, who's 80. Chuck Norris is 80 years old, dude.
That's insane.
This is scaring me because people that I thought were like 60 are actually like 20 years older than what I thought, which means that I'm probably a lot older than I thought. Okay. Did you ever watch his stuff? Have you ever seen like any of his movies, like the good ones from back in the day?
I might have done. I'm just actually pulling up now to see which ones I have. I mean, I did. Yep. I've seen him in The Expendables.
Come on. Chuck Norris is legit. Like he did.
I haven't seen any of his old school ones. No.
Like his stuff's quite cheesy, but like the dude was legit. Like as a competitive martial artist, people I don't think maybe give him the credit in sort of outside the martial arts circles that maybe he's due, because the dude was a fucking boss. What is trending though at the top, I think you'll like this, is there's some coronavirus stuff, but fuck that. Like that's always trending. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But today, being March 10th, is Mario Day.
Oh yeah, hell yeah!
The world celebrates Mario Day, man. I think we can talk about that for a few minutes.
Doesn't compare to Batman Day, but still like it.
When's Batman Day? Is there?
I'm pretty sure when's Batman Day? Let's have a look. I'm pretty sure there is a Batman Day because I usually end up posting on it.
Nice.
September 21.
Okay.
Batman Day.
Why is it September 21? Is there a reason? Am I missing something obvious?
The Dark Knight's 80 years.
Okay.
I guess it must be, but the birthday.
Gotcha.
Celebration. Yeah.
Say Mario Day, March 10th, is because it's MAR 10. I guess it kind of spells Mario.
Oh yeah. Clever.
Smart. These gamers, man. They know.
Recently, I got my commercial agent emailed me to be like, "Hey, there's a Nintendo audition. We just need to know, like, all you need to do to audition is just tell us like if you like Mario or not, and what and so I was like, who doesn't? Like, come on, what's your favorite Mario game? I was like, well, I had the NES and I played the pixelated Super Mario Brothers. But when Super Mario World came out on the SNES and you get to like hit the little question mark and then the egg comes out and Yoshi hatches and you start riding Yoshi for the first time, I'm like, best moment ever.
Yeah.
Best moment of my life.
I think Mario 3 was the one I played the most. And I never
the raccoon flying one. Yeah, that's fun.
I never had a SNES. I was always like the Sega Mega Drive or Genesis one for people who call it Genesis. Weirdos.
Talking of which, have you managed to see Sonic yet?
I've not seen it. No. Did they do a good job? Yeah.
Yeah. Jim Carrey's brought the old school back. He's brought the mask into Dr. Robotnik. It's so good.
Okay.
Yeah, really interesting. But the whole thing's really, really good. Then I was sat down with my brother-in-law the other day. I was like, oh yeah, my friends wrote that. I was like, what? They've just been writing like forever. But this is the thing about perseverance. Like, he was like, they've been writing forever. They didn't have much luck. And then all of a sudden, boom, they've landed this huge commercial contract.
That's what it is.
Sonic the Hedgehog. And they've got Jim Carrey attached. And it's set up for, they could do a lot of these.
Yeah. Bring in Tails in the next one.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything, but like, go and watch it. You will see the setups, like, for later in life. And there is an end credit scene that everyone needs to watch. But
do you need to know the games? Like, if you don't know the games, will you still enjoy it as much? Do you think?
Yeah, the story's so fun. I think it's just it's one of those, when you go to commercial films and you're kind of like, yeah, that was fun. You know what I mean? This one's like, oh, that was really fun. That one's more that kind of fun, Okay. It's like, that's great. I like these characters. This is great. Nice. Really well written. And like, I just think that I love that story, that perseverance. Like, these two writers have just been literally in the middle of Hollywood, just going, like really failing, like having like many success in indies, but not, and then all of a sudden, boom. And they're like, right, this is it.
And now they'll be like, overnight success story in lots of people's eyes, right?
When it's been like a decade.
It's the through line for everybody, right? It's like when you looked at when Barry Jenkins won Best Oscar for Moonlight, but then nobody looks at the fact that he did like 10 or 12 short films before he even was given anything close to an opportunity or a look in for that level of project. And it's just life. That's the truth of life, right? Like, why would you trust someone with something of that magnitude if they've not got the experience? Like, I'm going to go with someone who's been plumbing for 10 years versus someone who's never picked up a plunger for more than 5 minutes. It's a no-brainer.
Big time.
And that was a very indirect way of looping that back to Mario.
That's really good. Yeah, you're getting good at this. Yeah.
That's nothing to do with me. That's nothing to do with me. I don't think. All right, dude. Last segment, and then we are done. It is 10 questions, and I think, as I said, or I might have said, inspired by me choking as I say that, apparently. Inspired by Inside the Actors.
By you choking.
Yeah, okay, stop. Inside the Actors Studio, for those that have seen it, homage to the show, to James Lipton, who passed recently. But he would ask those 10 questions at the end of the show. And, he'd ask them to some pretty well-known actors. Some of them you might know. But I think, it's an always insightful little segment to do with anybody. So let's get into it with the first question, which is, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word? Authenticity.
What's your least favorite word? You're going to see a pattern.
But say that again.
What is your least favorite word?
My least favorite word, I would say scammer.
I'm only laughing because I know why. Cool.
Yes, I have been scammed.
Yeah, we all have in some ways, even if not directly and implicitly.
Oh yeah.
What turns you on? Easy. In a spiritual, intellectual, or emotional capacity?
I love seeing any, whether it be through watching a film, TV show, in an acting class, or anything. There's somebody just really getting deeply connected to what they're doing with the other person. I love that so much. It's great.
Because they're kind of having a discovery or an aha for themselves in that moment, right? It's kind of
shivers up my
beautiful.
spine every time. Yeah.
Conversely to that question, what turns you off? Scammers.
Yes, that too. I think the first thing that came up is just this, just anybody who's trying too hard. I think like the try hard nature, the push of, I need to be seen.
The desperation, that kind of desperate vibe.
Like, yeah.
I think we're all kind of, as a human race, wired to sort of feel something weird about that vibe and energy anyway. You know what I mean?
Well, we're all looking for answers. Don't get me wrong. We all are.
Sure.
But the thing is that we're pointing towards the wrong things for the answers. We need to be pointing to ourselves. So it's always a real big turn off when people are like, and I've been a culprit of it. I have even been recently at sometimes, but I catch myself these days and go, oh, I'm being one of these people who keeps like, no, just please tell me what it is I need to do. Right? That it doesn't work.
Sure. What's your favorite swear word? Which may come up when you're in those moments, to be fair. I don't know. This is a dangerous one for you, but
I mean,
because it could be really obvious, or you could be creative.
Mine's the most grotesque one, and like I know how much it triggers people. Well, you can't. Yeah, cunt. I love.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna go.
I think it's just so blunt and cutthroat, and I love blunt point of views. I love that.
You know where you stand if someone calls you that. It's not like, fuck is a great one, but it has different. You can use it in so many different ways. Whereas that one's pretty much cut and dry.
Also, I've also experienced that being thrown around in spaces of fun a lot. Okay. I think that's also about like a lot of like kind of banterous, like You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
a lot of us, and when I was in Australia for about 9 months as well, like it was thrown around loads there because that's the Aussie way of how they frame it. And I think that's really fun. And I think it's really fun if you don't take something so seriously.
Ultimately, it's words, right? Like the words
Yeah.
only have meaning based on the meaning and stories we give them.
Yeah.
You can say something to somebody as a word that could really offend them, but then someone else could say the same kind of thing to them in a different context with a different energy, and actually the response is totally different. So it's, not getting too caught up and too serious with it all.
Yeah.
What's your favorite sound or noise? No, not what first came into your head.
No?
This is a PG show. It's a PG show.
It's not a PG show. You
it's not
just
a
spawned
PG
about
show.
10 times. Yeah. Yeah. Farts are hilarious. I think they're great. Look, me and I grew up with my best dear friend, Robbie Hubble, 2 years old. We grew up together. And like, I was in the West Midlands and like, you know, I grew up in a lad energy, and I still I have a stag group like his stag group, Robbie's stag WhatsApp group. That's what I was looking for. Still exists today, and there's just really childish like fart sounds being recorded directly from somebody being sent over, which I play, and then it makes me laugh. And so I think it's just funny, and like, I like toilet humor. I think those sounds are funny.
I think more people do than are open to admitting.
Yeah, they don't admit it. Yeah, it's like Terrence and Phillip in South Park with the most genius character.
Don't. Hey, Terrence, pull my finger.
There you go. It's funny.
Terrence and Phillip are awesome. I remember one of my friends who'll hate me for saying this, but Klaus, if you ever watch this, you'll know. Klaus is a friend from Germany who's like a professor, and back in high school he was like super just like diligent, and I was like the only one who had the Terrence and not even that, the South Park movie VHS. I would like loan that out to people I was like a Blockbuster video in some ways, because I was in Spain, so I had the English stuff. People loved it, and he came to my house and watched the South Park movie. And there's a scene, I don't know if you remember, where Terrence and Phillip go on the Conan O'Brien show, and they do like a fart joke, and then Brooke Shields is on the show with them, and she just looks at them and goes, "Oh, I once farted on the set of Blue Lagoon," and they just pause, look at her, and they're like. And they're like, Terrence slaps her and she goes flying across the room and smashes into this drum set. And then they just go into like fart jokes. Yo, my friend Klaus like lost his shit. He was like, oh my God, rewind again, rewind.
That is my favorite moment as well, is when something you have to play things around. Oh,
I must have rewound that VHS to that moment like at least 10 times. And every time he found it even more and more hilarious because it's that toilet humor. And this is the most straight-laced dude that you could probably have come across, but that broke him. And I'm like, yo, we all have that inside of us.
I also had that moment when in Friends, when Ross and Rachel are in Vegas and they're really drunk in the hotel room, and he goes like, and Joey walks in and he goes like, yeah, you need anything, I'm your guy, and he slaps him on the chest, and Ross goes to sit down when there's no chair there, and he falls over and he gets up, he goes, oh are you okay? That moment for me, me and my friend watched that, same reaction, rewound it about 10 times. I love those moments that get you.
Those are great.
But yeah, fart sounds the best.
There you go. Okay, so next question is, what sound or noise do you hate? That noise that you're doing right now.
I mean, last orders at the bar bell.
Yep. Okay. Wolverhampton till the end. I love it.
That's right.
What profession other than your own or the ones that you've done would you most like to attempt?
Good question. I don't know what, like something like maybe it was either like a marine biologist type thing, anything to do with kind of like exploration of the world. So like, you know what I mean? Any of those forms, you know, like, I mean, what David Attenborough does is incredible. Like I would love his job. think his job's amazing. I also chose marine biology because I love scuba diving, but anything that just informs me more about the world, the nature that we live in, I would love. I would be so indulged in that.
And what profession would you definitely not want to do under any circumstance?
An accountant, man.
Yeah.
It's what it is, well, because I'll be cast as an accountant. It kind of wasn't in the last film we did together, anyway. So, like,
Sort of.
yeah, it was sort of his profession before he needed a job. Yeah, man. I just like. I know. I love that there are people who will take care of us, and like they love that. And
Yes.
easy, because thank God, grateful for all of you, grateful for my own.
Yeah.
But hell no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hell no. Yeah, I hear you.
No.
I hear you. Okay, last question, and then we'll wrap it up. When it's all said and done, all the smoke's cleared.
Ugh, yes.
What would you like the story of your life to be?
The story of my life to be to other people, just to me.
Oh, well, let's not pull on that thread. Just whatever hits you.
When I always think, like, the one thing like I always think is just like that it was just really worth it, and that could mean that's
enough.
for me. Just
That's
like
enough.
that it was really fucking worth it, man.
But that's,
You know?
it's an ambiguous question, right? It doesn't have to have a rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah. I mean, if we're gonna go into details of it, it would be like just to I've enjoyed everything that every up and down. I've enjoyed it all, embraced it all, and that's also, collectively with other people that we embrace that together and understand it from each other's perspective, so that we gain better perspective. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
If it's just to just gain perspective for each other, for ourselves and each other, God, yeah, that would be great, because that's just going to create a kind of more informed world with humanity over all the other things that we focus on.
Completely agree. Love that. Awesome. Well, listen, dude, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll try and maybe do another one another time where we focus maybe solely on the creative process of films and festivals and all that stuff. But look, floor is yours at the end to wrap it all up with. Use it to, let people know what you got going on, anything you want to plug, and then where people can find you online, social media, if you want to have them connect with you.
Got you, man. Yeah, thank you. And thanks so much for having me, Ash. I love what you're doing here. And it's already a really great platform to do, and just to connect. And do you know what? Like, just before just to connect and talk for whatever time that we've had here. Is it almost 2 hours now?
I don't know, a while.
Something like that. But like that, you just forget the value of that. And that's what I love about the podcast realm right now. And hearing, anybody's creating that platform, I'm grateful for, and very grateful to be on one, man. So thank you. Yeah, I'll plug my socials. Instagram is at Scott M Wagstaff, M for Michael. So Scott M Wagstaff. That's also on my Twitter, and I think on my Facebook as well. Website scottmichaelwagstaff.com. I'm soon to release my comedy short that I produced, directed, and was written by a really talented, lovely actor called Harry Tahar back in the UK. His writing was so fun, and when I read his script, I was like, I've got to do this. And it was the first time I wore more hats. I also acted a small role in it as well. So it's very tongue-in-cheek British. It's called Boss Kiss.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's about an employee who keeps mistaking his boss for leaning in for a kiss at the end of weekly meetings, when really he was just leaning in for the door handle every time, which progresses. So look out for that. It will be on my socials about where we release it. So I'm looking to, in the next month, do that. So look out for that. I've got another comedy called Fitness Problems, #FitnessProblems. But that is about to possibly put into a few little festivals first before we see the light of day on that one. Awesome. And obviously, lastly, there's Pendulum. Please check it out, and Ash will link that at the bottom. Feel free to watch that. It was the first endeavor, and we'll talk more about that on the next one, man, and kind of break down all that value that we had of learning on productions that we did, from that to Color Me Gray to Falsify, to all these things that we've learned along the way. Your writing process, what I produce, We should tackle that because that's gonna be really fun to talk about.
Absolutely. I'll need a few whiskeys for me at least.
Oh, I'll get the tequila on the go.
Oh God, no. On that note, we'll wrap this one up. Tequila is the devil. Listen, thank you so much, my guy. We will talk soon, and we'll do that. We'll do that follow-up podcast for sure.
Rock on, man.
Awesome.
All right, buddy.
All right.
You take care.
You too.
Thanks very much for listening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.